Hello, and welcome back to Unpacking Mormonism and Other Religious Trauma. I'm your host, Sarah Westbrook, and this is my very sexy husband. See, every time I call him sexy, people are like, but is he? And take a look at this. He very much is. Okay, I'm being totally corny. So we are going to talk.
I am wearing Mickey Mouse right now.
So it's so hot. Like,
if you can't see it, it's
yeah, Mickey Mouse from Walmart.
Oh, yeah, white trash. White trash.
Alrighty. So anyway, we are going to talk today about the 6 things that we have learned since leaving the Mormon Church or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Every time I say Mormon, I give a victory to Satan. Go Satan, I guess.
Well, not the 6 things. I think there's a lot of things that we've learned.
Yeah,
so
just
maybe just 6 things that we've learned. That
right.
Can help change our.
Yeah, because we got to go home and start packing because we are moving to our farm here in the next couple of weeks. So we're really excited about that and totally stressed out. So 6 to keep it short and simple so we don't lose too much time and feel rushed the rest of the day. So Mason, I was going to jump right in, and I don't know who wants to go first. So the way that I advise all of my clients in clinic on how to make major life decisions is through paper, rock, scissor. Like, I present mine, he presents his, we paper, rock, scissor to see who goes first. Of course, I am joking. For those of you who are not here, that is not a valid way to solve things, but for this it is. So are you ready, Mason? Here we go.
Should I just lose on purpose and let you go?
No. Compete with me. I need competition in my life.
1, 2, 3, boom, right?
1, 2, 3, boom. Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I go first. Alrighty.
I promise I didn't do that on purpose.
He did not do that on purpose. Okay, so my first thing that I've learned since leaving the Mormon Church, and also why I'm wearing what I'm wearing, is to demonstrate that skin isn't sinful, or skin isn't sin. Like, this is going to be my new motto: skin isn't sin. And I think that one of the reasons why this has been so valuable for me is in Mormonism, the purity culture is that if your shoulders are showing, so my shoulders never showed like this in public unless I was at a swimming pool. It would have the cleavage, like you're getting what, an inch there. I've got big boobs, y'all, so cleavage is just a part of life. But this would have been this outfit right here, which I'll stand up at. Like, you can't, it's not short, it goes below my knees, but my cute little summer sundress, this would have been an outfit that would have been considered, what would you say, Mason? Like, I'm asking for sex right now because of this outfit. It's not even that great a lingerie.
You wouldn't have to say Mormon. You're giving a victory to Satan just by putting that thing on.
I am giving a victory to Satan by having my shoulders. These are my slut shoulders, y'all. Slut shoulders, and my very horistic breasts here. Horistic eye makeup words. WH horistic. And I'm here to say that skin is not sin. There are many cultures in the world that do nudist colonies. And I really hate, from Mormonism and many other religions too, this is not something that is exclusive to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormon. This comes from a lot of societal reasoning as well as religious reasoning, and that is that if I am wearing something that shows my skin and I get sexually assaulted, it's obviously my fault. And I'm here to say that in these societies where skin is something that you normally see, like, you don't have those sexual reactions. And I would say that in those communities where it's like, oh my God, her shoulders are bad, Satan's going to get you because all the men are going to want sex. Like, you're conditioning your little boys to be like, shoulders, ding. And that's just not the way that the brain works. And we see this across many cultures and stuff. If you're interested in the scientific studies on those, shoot me an email. I'm not going to go into the weeds here because that's not our goal for today. But skin isn't sin. If you are comfortable wearing it, wear it. If you're uncomfortable wearing it, we'll adjust, because I no longer focus hardly any time at all on, is my underwear showing, the adjustment of the longer underwear down to the knees or the shoulders or the breastline. Like, I can't even begin to describe how much energy of my daily life went to, is my underwear, are my garments covered appropriately, especially in the summertime? Am I covered appropriately? Because I can't show them, because if I show them, then I'm breaking a covenant I made with God. And so being able to shed that, like, so much focus on my undies, and also not giving a crap, like other people were focusing on my underwear too quite a bit. Just being able to get rid of that has been liberating. So that's my number one.
So I was listening to Cults to Consciousness.
I love that podcast.
One of the things I love about that is that she does a lot of Mormon stuff, but she does a lot of other stuff too. I've listened to some Jehovah's Witness stuff. I've listened to, the last one I listened to was about a Muslim. Mm-hmm. And
Hayden is texting me, so since he's babysitting, I'm going to look, but I'm still mostly listening.
So she asked him, because they were talking about dress and modesty and stuff, and of course, Muslims have an even higher standard of modesty if you're talking about clothing. And she asked, does it actually change the way that men respond to women? And he's like, nah, you just learn that that's what it is. You see an ankle, it's as hard charging as the shoulder is. And so it doesn't really change. I think my point is that the skin or the clothing doesn't change the response. The people change the response.
I would say the belief about what the skin represents changes the response.
Sure.
Because you're conditioned from a very young age in many cultures that if you see the ankle, that's the symbol of, I want you. Yeah. And I'm interested in you, or I'm available for this. And so the belief that the ankle makes you available for sexual intimacy is going to have more of an impact than the ankle itself. So absolutely.
The idea that, like you said, if you're dressed a specific way and you get assaulted, it's your fault, or at least partially your fault. That extends from the assault to a woman being completely covered head to toe in order to prevent that.
Right.
That's a shifting of responsibility.
Right. There's actually a movement out there, and I wish I had thought about pulling it up and giving it to you, where it shows this is what I was wearing when I was sexually assaulted. And they're normal everyday clothes. They're pants, they're long dresses, they're like super modest to immodest. Yeah. No, I remember the time, and I'll go ahead and end with this one and then you can go into your first one. But I remember one time having a conversation with my dad where he was going along that thinking of what I was wearing or what my daughters were wearing was going to give men bad ideas or bad thoughts, and that she needed to change to control the men. And I remember telling him, I don't care if she's walking absolutely butt ass naked down the freeway. If a man sexually assaults her, that's the man's fault. If she's comfortable walking butt ass naked, great. Go do it. And I do not recommend people walking around butt ass naked in everyday life.
The point being,
right,
it's what I'm wearing does not imply consent for anything.
I love that. Yeah, so I love that. What I'm wearing does not imply consent.
Right, there is no implied consent. If I walk up to you butt ass naked, it doesn't mean I'm saying, hey, suck on me, right? That's not what I'm saying.
Woo! I'm here to say, if you walk up to me butt ass naked, that is what you're saying, but keep going.
Well, there's a different situation, but anyway, no implied consent.
We were going to not go into the weeds, and here we are in the weeds. Yeah, I love that.
Started.
All right, go ahead.
We only started. So.
Oh, that was funny.
All right, so my first one is that I've recognized that I have a...
Oh, hang on. We've got a comment here that says, sexy doesn't equal sexual.
Yes.
Love that. Love that. All right, keep going.
Very good. So my first one is that I've recognized that I have a completely new perspective on religious indoctrination and how much religion is involved in people's lives. And kind of what I mean by that is that whether it's Mormonism, another high demand religion, or just religion in general, people inculcate religion into every aspect of their lives. And it's very difficult for them to disconnect that from everyday life. It's just been a weird thing to see, because, like, for instance, people who have strong feelings about God or Jesus or Allah or whatever, that becomes a inescapable piece of their everyday life, conversation, beliefs, choices. And it's very difficult, and I was there. It's very difficult to separate any kind of a choice from that. And it's been weird to see.
Yeah, I like that. I think that what you're really talking about is that, and here's our little quippy one: belief does not equal knowledge, and faith does not equal knowledge, despite what your religion teaches. I also just want to say you used the word inculcate, and I need to call you smarty pants for that. Inculcate. Oh, I think that means blend. Like, come on, hun. Speak at my level here.
I'm not even sure I used the word right. Let's see.
Yeah, I have no idea. So anyway, Mr. Smarty Pants over here is going to look up his vocabulary words so we can educate you on English vocabulary. But no, I think that, you know, I agree with you, because one of the things that I was taught in the Mormon faith was that faith equaled knowledge. And so if I felt like it was true, it was true. And that's a false paradigm. There's my big word. Paradigm. Did you use it correctly? To teach and impress by frequent repetitions or admonitions. Oh, yeah.
To teach and impress by frequent repetitions or admonitions. Yeah, I mean, sort of correctly.
I mean,
but that's the idea.
That's an accurate definition of what he's talking about. That may not have been what he was trying to say, but yeah, there we go. So faith doesn't equal knowledge. A belief does not equal knowledge. And when we do that, when we cannot separate, this is what I think is true, or this is what I believe is true, we really have a difficult time as humans to separate it and honor that other people don't, and that my belief system should not dictate your behaviors, thoughts, actions, and rather that if it's important to me, then it can impact my thought, beliefs, and actions, but that I need to stop trying to have that influence and control other people. Yeah. It's kind of like this. Right now, we've got in politics the separation of religion and state. It's always supposed to have been separate, and yet I think it was Louisiana just like came down with the 10 commandments have to be in every classroom in the state of Louisiana, but we're not talking about the basic religious code of any other religion being in the classroom. And so we have an issue of we are placing or forcing Christian values in our education system. It's supposed to be separate. Education in public education is supposed to be about reading, like, you know, right, science, math, like the scientific process, like actual science, not the 6,000-year-old earth, but the billion-old earth concepts, these types of things. We're supposed to be teaching our children processes that support whatever they then decide to pursue in their life, both religious and otherwise. Because like I couldn't read the Bible if I hadn't learned how to read. So let's teach our children how to read. Let's teach our children how to learn from reading, but we've got to kind of separate that. And I think that that's, you know, because you felt like the Mormon church was absolute truth, you were able to then utilize that, Mason, as it's okay for me to approach my colleagues and my friends, even non-Mormons, even those who believe differently than me, as if I am right and you are wrong, because my belief is being interpreted as absolute truth.
That was a very long edition.
It was. And Alex, our producer, is saying it's also ignorant because the reasoning is that it is original law when that is off by a good 1,000 or more years. Yeah, absolutely. We have these religious ideals that are very ignorant at times, but when we're caught in that system, we don't see them as ignorant because we see them and believe them as absolute.
Well, because Christians believe differently. They believe that that's the law that was given. Like Moses might have written it down, but that's what existed from time immemorial. They can't see it as anything different than original law because that's what they believe it is.
Well, and it makes me wonder, what are some of the things that you and I still hold on to that fall right back into that realm? Because we're not immune from it, you know, you and I. Yeah. And we're still going to, you know, oftentimes say my beliefs or my thoughts or my opinions are factual because to me they feel factual. So I think it's something that everybody can raise awareness on. Yeah. So did you have anything else you wanted to add?
There's another piece to that I just want to kind of add it. It makes me feel like I can't discuss any sort of religious change or divergence with Orthodox people.
Oh, I like that.
Because they can't see past the fact that they hold that as if it is fact. Like if someone who believes strongly in Jesus as their savior, and I'm not talking about what that does to their life in general, like if that makes them a better person, or they feel like that makes them a better person, then fine. But they cannot see they can't see any other cannot give any other concept of religion a real look because what they believe is fact. It's not a possibility, it is reality. And so they can't. There's another piece I want to talk about later that kind of ties into that, but it's a different thing that I've learned that just kind of connects with that. So it makes it hard to have those kind of conversations because it wasn't hard before because I approached it the same way. What I was talking about was reality. So I'll talk about it.
It was your reality.
Well, it was. But that's my viewpoint now. 4 years ago, that's not what it was. It was real. It wasn't. I didn't see it as my reality. I saw it as reality. And so I see now in other religious cultures, same sort of thing. If you're Orthodox, no matter the religion, it's reality.
Yeah, and I sent you and Alex a text, so now I'm going to silence your phone.
Yeah. Can you just back off?
No, I can't. It won't. This is the dynamic in our relationship.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So Mason, I'm looking at yours.
It's time for your second one.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to decide which one. Where's your third one?
You don't get to decide which one is mine.
Oh, no, okay, fine. You know what? If you would like to donate to our very fun but dysfunctional relationship here, you can do so by scanning the Venmo app on the screen. We are utilizing it right now. We will be utilizing those funds again, number one, to make sure that we are paying our staff a livable wage, and also to do repairs on the farm, where we are setting up that nonprofit for equine wellness and rehabilitation and human wellness and rehabilitation. So we're still in the process of getting that all going. We got stopped or slowed down because I got hemorrhagic E. coli, and holy cow, that was disgusting. And it knocked me on my tushy for a really long time. I also love Alex's comments. So Alex is our producer. He does a great job, and I love how he's involving himself in the conversation. I'm going to read you these texts. He says, if belief can be reality, then how do people share community in that environment? And I think I'm going to go ahead and take that comment and give my number 2 off of what Alex said, which is community is hard. So this would be like, the good, bad, and the ugly. I miss the community, or at least the sense of community that I had when I was an Orthodox Mormon.
Right, but it didn't feel like a sense at the time. It felt
right.
Like
it
community.
Felt real. Like
it feels different now.
Yeah,
it felt like real community.
I'm so proud of you for interrupting me rather than me interrupting you. Like, way to go. All right. That is, like, for those of you who don't know, if I'm an interrupter, it's really bad. But yeah, I appreciate that, Mason. At the time, I felt like it was absolutely real. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, I can see the difference between which relationships are the real ones, like the people who have stuck with me throughout the years, and those that are like, oh, you no longer believe the same way I do, therefore you are dangerous. And I think, again, we're going to come back to kind of that conditioning, that belief that if you cannot rescue somebody who's gone astray in your religious community, for us that was Mormon, then they're dangerous and you need to avoid them. And so when I first left, I remember when we first started our podcast, I had already been out for a while, because I think we've been doing the Unpacking Mormonism podcast now. Has it been a year or 2 years? Like, it's been at least a year and a half. I think it's been
a year and a half.
Almost 2 years. I think this, like, October or November is 2 years.
September was our 1 year.
That's right. Okay. Or maybe it was our 2. Anyway, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But at that point, I had already been out, like visibly out for over a year, maybe even almost a year and a half when we started that podcast. And I remember saying on the podcast, I haven't really lost any friends. I lost one that shocked me and everybody else was my friend. Well, as time has gone on and I no longer have the same belief system, I have lost a couple more that have just, our value systems are apparently different or whatever. And my value system really hasn't changed. In my opinion, the dogma behind that has absolutely changed. But it's been very interesting to see which members of my community I can have valuable conversation with, even when we don't agree, versus those that expect agreement. It's like, I don't want to think outside the box. I don't want to hear a differing opinion, a different different, I could be a musician here, a different opinion is threatening, or a different belief system or a different political value becomes bad or evil, or that it makes me angry, therefore I don't want to engage in it. And those uncomfortable emotions are an opportunity for us to learn. And I think that society in general has been taught that that uncomfortable feeling is bad or wrong or evil, and then you leave your community behind. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we have such division in our country, or at least what appears to be division. I would say most people are actually, somewhere in the middle of the Republican and Democratic belief system. But I think that it's this human conditioning that a difference of opinion is somehow threatening to the relationship. And I really value the friendships I have right now where we are able to have those intellectual conversations where we don't agree on everything and we still enjoy our time together. So for those of my friends who are out there watching this, you know who you are. Thank you. You rock. You're my besties. And I absolutely love that dynamic.
I think a lot of that comes from, and I said it before on something else, but I'm going to say it again, blame shifting. That if you say something to me that causes me to be uncomfortable because we don't agree on something, I think the standard is, and I know I feel like it's been that way in my life, and from what I've seen from a lot of people, the standard is to blame you because
right, like,
what you said, don't let me, because you said something that made me uncomfortable, it's your fault, rather than me going, okay, why did that make me uncomfortable? It's the same thing on a different level as the modesty thing, right? If I teach my kids that if you see someone who has their shoulders exposed, or you can see more of their boobs than you're supposed to, it's thank you, that's nice.
Now he can't think, he lost his train of thought.
It's their fault,
right?
Rather than me putting it back on myself. Okay, what's going on here? Oh, it's a boob. That's supposed to turn me on a little bit, but that's not what I want right now. Let me just rein that back in and I'm okay.
Right.
And I'm not blame shifting. And so those conversations, the people that decide they can't handle that anymore, it's because they're saying, I can't be around them, rather than what's going on in my head. I value this relationship more than I am afraid of the fact that I saw her boobs, or more than I'm afraid of the fact that she has an opinion that's completely different than mine that I don't know what to do with.
Right. I love that. And I was going to interrupt you and say this. So I'm going to say now without interrupting, because I'm
how that works.
Right? I know.
Isn't that exciting?
It's so hard. My ADHD brain. Oh, you know what? I didn't take my meds yet this morning. Oops. Okay. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Yes. Thank you, Alex, for the squirrel. What I was going to say is we're talking about that internal versus external authority. And I love that you brought up like the shifting of blame or the turning of the tables, which is your opinion makes me uncomfortable. Therefore, it's your job to change your opinion so that I can exist comfortably.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Something that I have a really difficult time teaching my clients. Like, this is not something that we talk about once and you're cured. Not at all. This is something that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to put into to get to a place where you are in charge of your own emotions and the thoughts that come from that. Now, having said that, people can do or think or say things that have an impact on those emotions. But once you regain cognitive awareness, it's your responsibility to respond or manage it differently. And I love my friends that have the emotional intelligence or the emotional maturity. And I love humans. I love humans that know how to manage themselves, where I can say something and they can disagree with me. And I love that. And I love especially the friends where we can talk about how we disagree and I can have a perception shift or a perspective change or a paradigm shift, put in your P word and we're good.
Or if you don't have a perspective change.
Interrupter!
You took a breath. Or if you don't have a perspective change, you at least understand their opinion better. Right. Because you're able to talk about it.
Right. Again, I really teach my clients, and I want to share this, I'm going to say wisdom with the audience today, that uncomfortable emotions, or what we call uncomfortable affect, is an opportunity for learning. Uncomfortable does not equal bad, evil, sinful.
Right.
Sometimes it can. Like, if I'm uncomfortable because my house is on fire, that's a bad thing. Like, I need to get up and move. Run away, right? But it's an opportunity for learning. It's an opportunity for action. It is not bad, evil, and sinful. And I know in Mormonism, we were taught that contention and anger is of the devil. And so it was avoided. And yet when we avoid our angry feelings, we actually become more angry because that resentment settles in there. So that actually brings me to a reminder. We will be starting our Unpacking with Sarah episodes Thursday mornings, Alex. I don't remember the time we decided on. I want to say it's 9:00 Central in the morning, most Thursdays, Unpacking with Sarah. And we will be talking about mental health, wellness, and ways that you can learn. And basically, I'm giving my audience the same tools, techniques, and resources that I would give my clients, not as a replacement to your therapy, but as an educational and learning opportunity. So that will be starting July 4th for Independence Day. We are going to be doing our Unpacking with Sarah stuff. Okay, Mason, your turn.
I was going to add to that. We talked, because you mentioned like anger and contention and those being sinful. We talked a lot about that in one of our earliest episodes, and I'll put the link here on this show later if you want to go back and look at that, because we talked about kind of what's going on in the brain with anger, contention, how you can see those things as not sinful, but work through them in order to benefit yourself and your emotional capacity. So,
yeah, awesome.
If you want to go back to that.
All right, you're up. What's your next one?
All right, so the next one is, I can see injustice that I couldn't see before because it was hidden by, quote unquote, it's all in God's hands. And what I mean by that is, for instance, we've talked a lot about men and women disparity in life, in Mormonism. Well, as an active Mormon, I could maybe see that there was some disparity there. It's hard to completely ignore it, but you don't really ever delve into it. You don't really consider what's going on here. Can it be different? Because it always comes back to, well, that's the way God wants it.
Right. You don't engage with it because you're thought stopping again. It kind of ties into what you said before of God just wants it that way. Did you say that already?
I don't think so.
I'm adding. This was part of our planning meeting. God just wants it this way, or this is how God is, or this is what God wants. And I don't need to understand how bad it's hurting somebody because God knows best. So it's called thought stopping. So
well,
go ahead.
And then if you fight it, if I look at it and I see, man, there's a disparity here between men and women in the church, and I'm not okay with that. You start to fight it. Well, what happens? If you fight it hard enough, you get excommunicated. The church takes your salvation from you because you're fighting for justice. Same thing if you had been fighting for
Prop 8, the LGBT.
Sure, yeah, Proposition 8.
Not the one that you're going
no,
for,
I was thinking, I was thinking
LGBT.
more race. Like if you were fighting against racism in the church in the 1960s, you might find yourself on the outskirts with the church where you would get excommunicated because you're fighting for justice, but it's not in line with what God wants. This is God's rule. We didn't make this rule. And so there's a lot of cop out on that where God is the problem. Or the Proposition 8 thing. We don't hate LGBTQs. God just said this is the way that it is.
Right. We're being racist, misogynistic, homophobic because God wants us to be this way. Therefore, it's God's fault. And don't get mad at me because it's God, and therefore I'm justified in being an asshole or a prick.
Right. The other part of that is, in thinking about LGBTQ, is that whenever I think about that in connection with religion and Mormonism, there's this statement that's very common to Mormonism, but I think it's also common to Christianity in general, is that to love the sinner but hate the sin. And I was having a conversation actually with one of my colleagues at work the other day, and I said the problem with that statement is that the science doesn't hold up with the idea. So if in religion you believe that they're making a choice to be gay, I kind of understand why you're saying what you're saying. I want them to make better choices, and I'm not going to accept that choice. But if you look at the science doesn't seem to hold up with that.
With the science is pretty clear. Homosexuality is not a choice.
Well, and there's probably, there's a spectrum of people that believe that, or how that fits into their lives, and that's not what we're here to discuss. but the science doesn't hold up with that. And so now, how do I hate something about a person that isn't in their control?
Well,
and still love them? I don't think that that's possible. How do I love part of you and not love another part of you? It would be like hating somebody because they're black. Like I can't, how can I do that and actually love them? I love you, but I hate your skin. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that too, is that I can see the injustice. Now I still don't necessarily know how to fight it. Like this is things we've learned, but I can see it better because I'm not blaming some existential concept for it. I'm not blaming God for the racism that lasted for 150 years in the church. I'm not blaming God for the fact that there's sexism in the church. I can see it for what it is without some sort of existential rationale for it.
Well, and I think the existential rationale places, the cis male in an elevation above everybody else as the authority on things.
Lots of reasons
and right, lots of things. And I just want to clarify, I follow the science, and as science shifts, I try and shift my beliefs as we get more evidence to things. And what I'm seeing in the science is that it's not a choice. You are born that way. And for me, I have some special needs kiddos. I've got, one who has schizophrenia, one who has autism. And that would be like me saying you were born with autism. I hate the autism, but I still love you.
Right.
I can't separate our daughter Abigail from her autism. Like her autism is what makes her so joyfully unfiltered, so embarrassingly unfiltered at times. We're in a sexual anatomy phase right now, and she's asking all kinds of inappropriate questions about the bing on boys. Okay. Like to everybody, everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's so fun for me. I just have to laugh. She's not trying to be inappropriate. She's not trying to be crass. It is who she is. She's curious, and her curiosity is going to get her in trouble. So we have to monitor it. We have to keep it safe. But I can't unlove the autism that makes her her. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard because it's different. It's hard to understand at times. It's exhausting at times because society doesn't make room for people on the autism spectrum. Like she does not look autistic. And she very much is autistic. And so sometimes her questions create very uncomfortable circumstances in society, but I can't separate it because it is who she is. It's what makes her who she is. And I think that that's really where, the church, the Mormon church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is missing out, is that love means radical acceptance. It means accepting everything, including the parts you don't understand, including the things that make you uncomfortable. Again, feelings of discomfort are an opportunity for learning. And I mean, we all hold prejudices. We just don't realize that we all hold prejudices. One that kind of made me laugh the other day, I was on an emergency animal site because we've got farm animals, and some lady went on this rant of how much she absolutely hates people who would put a sick animal down rather than making their life, extend the life, whatever, and how much they hate. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. You're not racist, but prejudice against people who believe differently than you. And it's not on a topic that anybody's really talking about except for PETA. Right. So, it's everybody holds these prejudices. We need to really open our eyes and recognize how those belief systems and prejudices are holding us back.
I like this comment too. It says, even if it is a choice, I assume we're talking about LGBTQ, that is what freedom and autonomy is. And I agree. Right. And for me, I think why the perspective change is so important for me is that I can see it now as, well, it's not a choice. And so I can't separate them. And I think the next step is going to, well, even if it is a choice,
God gave us our free will.
who am I to then separate them from that? Who am I to hate their choices that aren't hurting anybody? I'm not talking about a murderer. I'm not talking about somebody that's going out and a abusive parent. I'm not talking about those kinds of things. I can hate those things because they're hurting someone else. But in this case, that's not what's going on. And so for me, it's still a stepwise. I think what was very helpful is recognizing that I can't love the sinner and hate the sin. I don't think it's possible for me. And so in the impossibility of that situation, what do I choose? Do I choose to hate the person because of their sin? Or do I love the person in spite of their sin? Or even better, do I love the person with their sin? And I think that was a step. And then eventually I want to get to the point where I love them. The sin doesn't even come in.
Well, I would say in order to have that radical acceptance, you have to stop defining it.
Right.
You can't define it as sinful. If you're going to love them, if I look at my daughter who's autistic and I'm like, oh, this is a disability, this is a bad thing, she's, blah, 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 blah. When I label it as something with a terminating piece, like she won't be able to live on her own, then I'm more likely to view her as never being able to live on her own, rather than say she could probably live on her own, but it's not going to look like the way it did when I lived on my own. And I want to share the perspective of a client, because I feel like we're really off topic about what you learned, but in a good way. I once had a client who was gay, and that client shared with me that they felt like their gayness was a choice for years and years and years. And then it took them the time period, like it took them recognizing that they were actually bisexual, that they were in fact attracted to both male and female, but they preferred relationships with the same gender, same sex as themselves. And that is why they felt like it was a choice, because they did enjoy both. And that, because even for many, many years in the gay community, being bisexual was then bad and frowned upon and persecuted. And so it took them time. And so they felt like the choice was not, am I gay or not? It was recognizing preferences in somebody who was bisexual. And we've got some public comments, it looks like here. Let's see. Novel says, word sinner here. God's back. Cheers. Welcome to heaven or hell. Your call. Love you. Hi, Novel. Wonderful to have you with us. If you want us to comment on any of your comments, let us know. All righty. And we're getting a whole bunch of websites and links. So I'm going to encourage our audience, if you are interested in following those links. I don't know what those links are about. Follow them and let us know what you think. You can always reach us after the show. If you have questions or comments, you can put them on YouTube or wherever you're watching this. We do follow those. And you can also just email this directly. This email inbox is monitored by both Mason and I, daisygirlcommunications@gmail.com, or you can visit our website at daisygirlcommunications.com. So lovely to have you with us, Novel. We're really excited about that.
I think the last piece of that was me recognizing I'm still not very good at radical acceptance. And so just kind of recognizing that there's been a process. I can see the change in my perspective and the way that I'm moving toward that, and recognize that I'm still not there. Like I still struggle with that. Like my first thought when you said, I can't hate autism, my first thought is, yes, you can. Because
it's frustrating sometimes.
What I mean by that is you can hate what I'm thinking, and I don't know if this is true, but what I'm thinking is I can hate the fact that autism exists. It makes it really hard for people to live in the way that I think life should be.
I'm so glad you put that in there, because I was about to throat punch you right here on the show.
It's all a learning process for me. And sometimes I learn things while I'm here and we're talking things out, because my first thought was, yes, I can hate autism. I can hate the fact that it exists, but also Abby wouldn't be who she is without that. And so it's still a step. Like I'm just on the bottom part of a really tall staircase. It feels like trying to get to the point where I can just be radically accepting. And so I just want listeners to know I'm not there. So don't expect me to be there, because I'm not. But I'm learning and I'm working toward that.
I think most of us are still working and learning towards that.
I would imagine.
Please don't compare yourself to me. I've got the mama instinct that changes things
I
a little
would
bit.
never compare
but
myself to you. It makes my neck really sore.
Aw, thank you. I'll rub your neck. Here you go. No, so my first question is, has Abby asked you any personal questions about your genitalia yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, you're lucky because it's going to come here soon. She did ask many authority figures in her life that she's not supposed to ask.
How did I get?
I have no idea what you did, but you did something weird. So let me just like start. I think you hit my, whoa, and now we're completely gone. Alex, I don't know if we're still here or not. Let me go here. Let's see. There we are. We're back. Nathan messed it up. Which one are you?
I just wanted to get to that chat right there.
Okay. There we go.
To the wrong place.
Nathan's messing up my computer, you guys. No, the other thing that I wanted to say is that I think what you're describing is very indicative of the length that we've been away from the culty system that we both grew up in. Because I've been like physically and mentally out for probably almost or over a decade, and then like publicly out now for goodness since 2020, I believe, since right before COVID
maybe
hit.
21.
So, yeah, but so I'm going to say
longer than me.
99. Just kidding. 2019, 2020 is when I was like, I'm done and out. And then also my degree and my work with counseling has given me different experiences. But we've really done more of a deep dive on yours, whereas mine are more quippy and shorter, which is completely fine. And I think that that's just indicative of you're still learning to get to where you want to be. And so that requires more time. It requires more energy. It requires more discussion. And if you go back again to when we started the podcast, you're going to hear me and I'm a lot more angry. And now I'm more flippantly sarcastic because it doesn't impact me the same way that it does you. And that's normal. That's a sign of we're in different areas. And hey, let's radically embrace that. Yeah. And we can move on from there. So are we ready to move on to my third one?
Yep.
All right.
Let's do it.
My third one is that emergency preparedness does not need to be so extreme or fringy. I know when we were active, well, you still really struggle with this sometimes. So, and I love it. It makes me giggle and drives me crazy.
It brings into stark contrast.
It makes me go like this.
It brings into stark contrast how much of our lives are affected by religious indoctrination.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So
So when we were Orthodox members of the Mormon Church, we had a year's supply of food, which was something like, I don't even remember the numbers, like 400 pounds of grain per person in our family. So let me just illustrate a picture of this. We had, while being Orthodox members, at our most, 7 children and 2 adults. And if we just say 500 pounds of grain, what is 8 times 500? That's like 4,000 pounds of wheat, oats, barley. Like, y'all, there was more grain in my house when we were Orthodox Mormon than there is in my barn for the 8 horses outside. I'm just gonna put it.
Well, and lots
that's
of
a lot because horses
we didn't really know how to use.
Right, and and that's the thing is that we weren't using it because and maybe we were supposed to be, but
yeah, that was snarky. Yeah.
It was snarky, flippantly snarky. I told you that's who I am. I'm flippantly snarky. I don't care. I just don't care. Yeah, I'm validating myself. It feels good. Good job, Sarah. So no, I think the thing for me is that we had thousands of pounds of food storage. We still we're like, okay, we might use that. So we still have like freeze-dried broccoli and some freeze-dried mushrooms. The onions last forever because they're just for flavor, right? But they're like some of it is way past, like I started throwing away when it hit its expiration date. But Mormon Church taught me that my whole wheat and my pinto beans and black beans would last in a number 10 can with an oxygen packet, sealed in a number 10 can with an oxygen packet, that it would be good and nutritionally sound for 30 years. And I am here to tell you that is a fucking lie. Unless you like to eat rocks. I'm sorry. I boiled some of those pinto beans, y'all, for 6 hours, and those beans would not cook all the way. And no, that's a lie. It will still lose its nutritional value, and it's 30 years old. And then I think where that really hit us hard is we were military. So Mason, explain how the military moves you, which they're moving us again to the farm.
So
thank you, Army. Go.
First off, the piece of that is that, as most people know, you move a lot. So for us,
we moved on average every 3 years.
The military didn't move us quite as often as we also moved ourselves, just because of changes in our family dynamics. But yeah, we moved every year or two.
We moved
from one location
to
another.
A big move about every 3 years, like across,
So
like Texas
works,
to North Carolina back to Texas. That was our most popular.
So the way that works is the Army will pay for it, but you have a certain weight limit depending on your rank and your family size. Mostly your rank, and if you have a family, not your family size.
Right.
So say, for instance, if you, as an E6, have a 10,000 pound weight limit, they'll move all of your stuff, but they'll only pay for moving 10,000 pounds. So if you have 12,000 pounds,
you get a big bill at the end.
You have to pay for that extra 2,000 pounds. And it's interesting that oftentimes we would make the decision to move the food storage and sometimes leave things like furniture behind or other things because it was more important.
We were righteous.
And the food storage takes up a lot of weight, but doesn't take up a lot of space. So it's easier to throw in 25 boxes of food storage and not a couch.
When you buy it in the cases.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easy to move because it's just little boxes. Even though they're heavy, it's easy to move. And so,
I want to interrupt you.
We would make that change.
10,000 pounds for an E6 is very generous. It was more like 7,000 pounds, I think. It wasn't 10,000 pounds until you were an officer. Anyway,
I don't remember.
But yeah, we would move that food storage. And now the Army's like, yeah, we don't move food unless it's canned. So anything that we had in buckets, then they wouldn't move. But honestly, we've thrown most of it away. Despite the fact that we tried to use it, we've thrown it away. And it wasn't good for us. Like when we were grinding up wheat that's 5-6 years old, we're not gaining the nutritional value that we would need from it. And I think over time that can contribute to illness and whatnot. The other thing is like the guns and the weaponry that you're supposed to have. And if you look at some of these Mormon fringe groups, and I'm, like the Daybells right now, or what's the name of that book that there's a couple of them.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, but
yeah.
I don't remember.
Go watch the Lori and Chad Daybell thing. You'll hear about
the book that they kind of held almost as a Bible.
Right. Or oh goodness, what's her name? She wrote Educated. Tara Westover, she talks about how her parents were super fringy in this like last days Armageddon preparedness, whatever. It's fringy, and a lot of people it gets taken really far, and it's really, really dangerous. And so yeah, I'm prepared. Oh, and the other thing is that the food was more important than financial savings. So those few times where financial times hit us hard, and we ate from our year's supply almost exclusively for a few months. The Edge of Heaven? No, that's what Chad Daybell wrote. It's not written by the Daybells. It's the book they were reading when they got arrested. So, but what book was Lori Daybell reading in Hawaii when she got arrested? And that's the name of the book. So anyway, Mason's going to look that book up and let you know what it is. But, my thing is that we spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on food that we've now thrown away, or that we moved across the country and had to spend. Visions of Glory. There's the name of the book, by John Pontius, who that is the pseudonym, and the guy that actually wrote it, I don't know what his real name is. Again, I'm bad with the details now. Yeah. But the guy that wrote this book that caused a lot of fringy outcroppings in Mormonism is the same guy that screens our teenage missionaries for their mental wellness and stability before they go on their missions. And it's really scary. So if you are wanting more information on that, you got to go over and watch some of the Mormon stories, stuff about the Daybell things, and you'll hear that and get your source material for that. We're just hearsay right now. So anyway, now I just lost my train of thought. What was I saying right before that? Oh, we spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars instead of putting it in a savings account. And frankly, if we had put all of that money into a savings account when we fell upon hard times, we'd have had the financial ability to pay for the the challenge that we were hitting, the challenges that we were running into and bumping into. So, you know, I think that emergency preparedness is important. I feel like the 72-hour kits is a really good thing to have, you know, a backpack or something that you can grab, toss in the car and go. I think having some emergency cash on hand and small bills is really appropriate. You know, we've lived now through 3 natural disasters. We've had the forest fire and the 2 hurricanes that led to tornadoes. So I think 3 we have lived through, our family, and Mason was gone for some of them, of course, because that's, you know, God strikes the Westbrook home when Mason leaves, which proves that he's more righteous than me.
Just because the priesthood is gone.
Yeah, the priesthood is gone, and I was totally fucked. And
that might have been snarky.
I know. Well, and that word made it so that I was like God's target. But anyway, so we've lived through these, and having a 72-hour kit where you can have, you know, a couple of days worth of clothes, small bills on hand, maybe even some non-perishable food and snacks for the kids. And then I also really liked the Mormon idea of rotating it every 6 months so that it would stay good. I like that. I think that is wise, but beyond that, beyond like a good, I don't even know, 1 to 3 months supply of canned goods in case we end up with like a COVID thing where there's no toilet paper again, you know, those types of things, to give our system enough time to work on things and get, to adjust. And so that way you're not hungry, you know, having a garden. I think those are good things, but I don't think the extreme side of it is necessarily good. And so my view on the end of days planning and preparedness has definitely shifted, and in a place where I'm not constantly afraid of what's around the corner. I think that being able to live through COVID and seeing how the toilet paper crisis was managed teaches us some things. And I don't think that the entire world is going to implode all at the same time. And if there is a nuclear war or something and it does implode all at the same time, I'm probably going to be dead anyway. So it'll be okay.
But I think more than necessarily our personal opinions about that is recognizing that you and I can make our own choices about it. Right. We decide, you know what, I do want to be prepared in this aspect. I do need to be prepared in this aspect, blah, blah, blah. We all make our own choices. We take information from whatever sources, and then we decide, okay, what do I want to do? What's best for me and my family? Oh, should I have 4,000 pounds of food? I know I'm going to move again next year.
Just probably of grain.
Not.
Just
right,
of grain.
Just of grain, right? Making the right choices for us without feeling the guilt of, yeah, but they said we have to, is really healthy. Right, I want this because I feel like this is best for my family, not because Joe Blow said I needed to, or Rusty.
Good old Rusty or Monson or whoever the prophet was at the time. You know, I think that for me, it was more what I've learned more, and really where I wanted to point out and totally missed the mark, is that I'm not afraid of the world ending in the same way, or even maybe at all, the way that I used to be. Like, I lived in fear of the next bad thing that I just couldn't, like they say, prophets see around corners.
Right.
They don't. Like, we got the whole, you know, what was that? Keep smiling, take your vitamins, whatever, COVID. And that's supposed to have been, he saw around the corner, but we still didn't learn about boiling water and other things. We need science for the real information and prophets for the feely goodies. Okay. That was snarky too. But my point being that I'm no longer constantly afraid of something bad about to happen to my family, and therefore I'm prepared because it's about to happen. I was told I would see the second coming, and I don't think I'm gonna, because I don't think it's gonna happen. But anyway, my point being, I'm not living in fear and preparing because I'm afraid. Now you know what? Sometimes shit happens. Let's be prepared for a couple of months in case shit happens and the government closes down for a little bit because, you know, a pandemic. I feel like we fared quite easily throughout the pandemic, but also we live in a very privileged country where the systems didn't completely come apart when that happened. I mean, They came apart, but not to the point that they would have in like Belize. Like, we went to Belize after COVID, and holy shit, things were bad in the United States, y'all. Not like they were in other countries. So anyway, and that I could scroll all the way down that rabbit hole. So I am no longer afraid of the world collapsing and the economy imploding and everything. It's just, again, radical acceptance. If it happens, it'll happen, and we'll figure it out when we get there. I'm prepared for a couple of months to give the systems time to fix things or us time to figure shit out to move forward. But I am not going to be eating expired food for a year to 18 months anymore. All right, that's my third one. All right, Mace, what's your last one?
So my last one is navigating what is now possible, but also sorting through what is desirable. What I mean by that is it used to be that what was possible was very prescribed. There were lots of lines that were pretty significant,
Right.
bolded lines that you just didn't cross.
And what you're talking about is things like if you want to get to your prescribed heaven and the way the Mormon doctrine teaches,
You don't
A,
cross
B,
the
and
line.
C, you don't go out of that, and you're guaranteed a spot in heaven as long as you. But it's very, very transactional.
Right.
And while life feels transactional, it's really not. Shit happens to everybody.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So you don't cross the lines. And so now what I'm talking about is things like, well, we've talked about this. So just an example, like a strip club. Okay. We've talked about that mostly, actually, ironically, because you want to do it. I don't have a whole lot of interest in it, but it's navigating. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. If you think about a strip club from a consensual place, right? And maybe there's other factors there, but the idea being that if a woman is at a strip club, she's consented to be there. And so, and maybe that's not always the case, but that's the idea. And so because the sin part is out of the question, that's not the issue anymore. Now it's recognizing, well, this is a possibility. Is it what I want?
Right. Well,
where do I go?
I'm going to pause you for a minute, just because I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think I know what you're trying to say, but I'm not certain it's coming out. I am okay with going to a strip club where I am as certain as I possibly can be that the dancers and staff are there of their own free will and choice, right, that they're not being victimized, and that I don't think that that's sinful. That doesn't necessarily mean I want to go, as much as if I was in a position to go, it wouldn't bother me as long as consent
right
was apparent and that I was doing everything in my power to make sure that I am not perpetuating the victimization of the sex industry, because really the issue in the sex industry is the trafficking of human beings, both right, minors and adults. And I have zero tolerance for that. That is not okay. But our sex workers that are engaged in the industry, because that's what they enjoy doing and it's of their own free will and choice. And I know so many people have a bazillion opinions on it, but I've had people who that is their job and they have enjoyed it and it was empowering for them. And I'm not going to fault them for that anymore. Right. Before you left Mormonism, there would have been no thought about it. It was bad. It was wrong. It was sinful. If you do it, you lose your salvation. Versus now, it would be more along the lines of, as long as nobody is being harmed forever and everybody is a consenting adult, then it's okay. So being right, more flexible in your thinking. Another
example would be like, I can do whatever the hell I want to now on Sunday. What do I want to do? I can drink as much alcohol as I want to. Do I want to, kind of a thing? Like, you really enjoy having a glass of wine or having a drink when we're out for dinner, nothing in excess. And so I've tried as well, and I really just don't enjoy it. It's not
his taste buds are screwed up. He cannot handle it unless there's so much sugar. He cannot taste the alcohol.
If I can taste the alcohol, I'm not interested.
Boring.
And I'm never going to drink enough to actually get any kind of a buzz because I just don't enjoy it very much. But that's the choice I make. I get right, to make that choice. And so there's lots of things that have come up that are just things that I have to sort through now. Oh, well, that's okay now. Is it something I want to do? And that's been kind of, in a lot of ways, very liberating, in some ways a little exhausting, in some ways confusing, but it's all about now what I decide or what we decide as a right, relationship is appropriate for us. We have a friend couple that after leaving the church, one of them discovered that they were bisexual. And so now they're in this relationship that both of them entered as if it was an exclusive relationship.
Right.
Now that they're out of the confines of what their religion taught them, they're exploring what that means for them. How can we as a relationship survive what would be entailed in exploring this kind of thing so that all of your needs are met, kind of thing.
Right.
But
Well,
now
and
it's not a religion prescribed. It's
I'm going to pause you for a
deciding.
minute. I'm going to pause you for a minute because I want to change your language a little bit. I would say that it's not necessarily that they left the church and then discovered
Sure.
the sexuality. Rather, while in the church, it wasn't there may have been the urges and the desire and the recognition of it, but it would have been stuffed down,
Right.
covered up, ignored, because that's bad.
Right.
So now that they're out, they can explore, and yes, they came to us and asked us for, hey, can you kind of help guide us a little bit into the science and ways to explore this that won't destroy our relationship. And hopefully what we said was helpful there. But yeah, I really like that. And I would like to say that exposure, you've got to be able to go at things with curiosity, and then exposure in a controlled environment that's healthy. So consent or
Right.
drinking, but in an area that you're not going to harm somebody. We're gonna, you're not required to drive home, and you're not doing it in secret. Would be a healthy thing, because I remember things like when I took my first drink, you weren't out of the Mormon church yet, and you were terrified. Like, you were convinced that I was going to be an alcoholic and our lives were going to end. And I was just finally like, whatever, dude. Stress exposure will be a good thing.
Point of clarification.
It wasn't
that I was scared you were going to be an alcoholic. In my mind, you weren't out of the church yet.
Oh.
It felt more like this was going to help drive you away from the church. And so that's what I was scared of. I wasn't scared of you becoming alcoholic, although that kind of thing crossed my mind. I was worried about it. Right. I was scared because you were making a choice that I thought would tip the balance.
That's interesting, because I don't feel like you ever verbalized that in a way that's what I heard until just now. That's really interesting.
I think I did, but I probably didn't have the
and I probably wouldn't have listened in that way either, because it was a rough patch in our lives. Y'all.
From my mind, it felt like that was the decision that was tipping the balance the other way, and I was still hoping that you would, fall to the other side.
He was still trying to rescue me, and there may have been a little bit of a dynamic of, I'm going to drink a little bit of alcohol, so I'm not wanting to be rescued.
Sure.
All right, so Mason and I have something to unpack here later today to figure that out a little bit. But yeah, I would like to just kind of, unless there's something else you wanted to share on that last one.
No, I have one more thing I'd like to share, but not related to that. So
okay, well, no, you go ahead first, because I was just gonna close up the thought.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So one of the things that really occurred to me as we talked about this, the changes, the things that have changed for us, where we go, all that stuff.
All that stuff.
Yeah, I thought of.
All that stuff.
Naturally went to a superhero, metaphor or relation.
Star Wars, DC. Marvel, it's DC. Is it AC and DC? What is it? It's DC Comics, and what's the other one?
Marvel.
And I got it right. I hate superhero shit.
So this is what I thought of. This is the transition for Mystique from going to what was her human, quote unquote, form to her mutant form. And what I thought of is, if you haven't, this is from the movie First Class, X-Men First Class. But in that one, you see Mystique as a child growing up, because in the originals, you just see her as an adult. In this one, you see her as a child and then growing up and kind of coming to terms with, and her father figure, who was Professor Xavier, hated her. I hated when she was in the mutant form. He wanted to see her as a normal, quote unquote, human. And so she really struggled with that. The person that she relied on the most essentially hated who she was. And so she really struggled with, who am I, this way, that way, whatever. And the thought that came to my mind is that in a religious system that wants you to be in their mold, whatever mold that would be. For us, it was Mormonism, but any religion that wants you to be in a specific mold, it's like they're asking you to be that human form. They want you to be like everybody else, doing things the way that everybody else does them, because that's the way God wants them. And when Mystique really started to discover herself, and, of course, putting a whole lot of
do you see what Alex
thought
called you?
Nerd! Putting a whole lot of thought, the same thing I would have done in comparing the Force from Star Wars to the priesthood kind of a thing. But
to
it really,
spirit, y'all, to the spirit of God.
But it really hit home for me in that when Mystique really started to find herself and her power as a mutant, it was when she accepted who she was.
Mm-hmm.
When she became comfortable in very much a real way in her own skin, that's when she became powerful. That's when she became who she was. And in a lot of ways, and maybe that wouldn't be the case for everybody, but in a lot of ways, in leaving this very restrictive organization, in this case a religion, that's where we've kind of found our inner power, because we have accepted us as we are rather than us as they want us to be.
Can I change the word? Instead of
No.
Power?
Yes.
I'm changing his word. Instead of power, I'm going to call it strength and courage.
Sure.
Because power, I mean, maybe personal power, sure. I don't want to have power that, power is a hard word for me. Whereas internal strength, the courage to be who I am, the courage to live that out loud, the courage to be authentic, that is all beautiful. But what do I do with power? And most people will take, when I hear power, I hear authority. And while I recognize that my voice is taken as maybe a powerful voice or a voice of authority, I have to be really careful with that I don't then utilize that to erase somebody else's authenticity.
That too when you finish.
And so I've always loved the character of Mystique. For one, Jennifer Lawrence is a badass. Well, she is.
So was Robin Stamos before. So
yes, absolutely. I love the character of Mystique because she represents everybody who is living in a mask or a suit that doesn't fit their authentic self. And then when they live their authentic self, while maybe less people accept them, they have more meaningful and valuable relationships with the people who do. Yeah. And I would say that I definitely feel that way. I had a lot more friends in my community when I was an Orthodox member, but the more meaningful relationships that I have, they mean so much more to me, and I am so much happier. So less is sometimes much, much more. And I feel like that's kind of here. So go ahead. What were you going to say? And I stole your phone. I didn't want to steal your phone.
Brene Brown talks about power, and I don't think she came up with the concept, but she uses it of there's power over and there's power with. And so when I use the term power, I mean power with. And if you look at the character of Mystique, she doesn't become a power over. She really helps to unite a group of mutants into whatever it was they were trying to accomplish. It became a power with.
She's got power.
But yes, the idea when I say the word power, and you can change it to strength or whatever, it's your authentic self claiming your own power, claiming your own ability as yours. Even in the church, whenever we did something good, who got the credit? God did. Whenever
God or the priesthood holder.
Whenever we did something bad, we would blame it oftentimes on Satan, but we would blame ourselves.
Right. We blamed ourselves because we were foolish enough to allow Satan in.
To be a part of that.
Be a part of that. I don't even I stopped believing in Satan long before I stopped believing in the Mormon God.
So there was no real inner power. We were always a slave to the two different forces, because if we did something wrong, it's because we had given into this one force. If something went right, it's because God had affected our lives in such a way. And so there was no inner power. Seeing that transformation, talking about how our perspectives and things have changed since leaving the church, really brought to mind that piece, that by owning who I am, and that's still a process, but by owning who I am, I claim my power. Mm-hmm. And not because I don't want to let some sort of existential force into my life, but because I make that choice.
Right.
If I want God or whatever it is that I end up believing in, if I want them to be a part of my life, it's because I'm choosing that. but I'm not giving my power to them. I'm essentially kind of sharing or benefiting from that concept, still owning who I am and what I have inside of me.
Right. I love it. And anything by Brene Brown, I'm going to love automatically because I would worship her before anybody else. So in closing, please, just a reminder, if you like what you are seeing, we would very much appreciate your donations. They help us pay our employees a livable wage. And since some of the portions, if you say, I want this money to go towards the farm, I just want you to know that you'll be contributing to my farmer's tan. See the line? It's like all these different sleeve lengths. Yeah, you need to go out there sleeveless more often. Mine's not as noticeable as it was when I was a Mormon.
That's a good line.
We're gonna, yeah, look at that. Mason's still a little Mormon boy. I am
line.
not here, but yeah, we need some more sunburn as we are putting up fencing, so that way we can make sure that everybody, I mean all the horses and goats and stuff, are healthy. If you are in crisis, having suicidal thoughts, or just need somebody to talk to help you calm your physiology and get back to a place where you can really be working from your frontal cortex. And absolutely, if you are feeling suicidal or homicidal, please call or text 988. I have had to do that. They were wonderful. Please utilize that resource if needed. My final thought to you is, I think that one of the reasons Mason and I have been able to come to a place of understanding these 6 things, or what I would call these 6 areas of growth in our life since leaving the Mormon church, is because we have taken the time to be more intentional in what we expose ourselves to, and that we're approaching that with a great deal more curiosity. So I just wanted to end with that, and we would love to hear from you. Again, if you would like to email us, you can do so at daisygirlcommunications@gmail.com, or visit our website, daisygirlcommunications.com. Thanks so much, everybody. We will see you in about 2 weeks. Bye.